Welcome to Business Line's State of the Economy podcast, where you'll find insight, analysis, and the story behind the numbers.
Namaskar. Welcome to the special episode on new income tax bill, which has been introduced in the Parliament on Thursday. Now the bill has been referred to select committee of the Parliament, and they are expected to come out with the report on the first day of the next session, which is the monsoon session. And the new bill, once enacted, is likely to be implemented from April 1, 2026. What are the key issues related with this bill? To talk about all those, we have two experts on that. Sandeep Jhunjhunwala, he's partner with Nangia Andersen. Sandeep, welcome to the episode.
Thanks,
and we have Anil Talreja, he's partner with the Deloitte. Let me start with you, Sandeep. People are saying that it's nothing but old wine in new bottle. What do you have to say?
So, Shishir, I would, in some sense agree to this. The basic framework and the ethos in the proposed income tax bill remains the same. So, in a more subtle language, I would say that it's a polished appearance with the core remaining the same and we were all familiar with. But we have to also understand the objective here. I think maybe the expectations, of the stakeholders have to be set right. The new bill was never intended to, come out with something groundbreaking. The objective itself was to make it a little more simpler for, everyone who is using the income tax to probably read and comprehend. Now, to that extent, I think definitely they have gotten rid of many, provisos, explanations, some of the redundant provisions which were probably not live, to date. So in some sense, if the expectations are tuned, I would rather believe that whatever was said to be achieved has been achieved by way of simplifying the Income Tax Act.
Okay. Anil, let me come to you. One thing which Finance Minister said while gave the intention that we are going to bring the new bill, that she said that it will be a simpler, right? And one word in Income Tax Act which has been used maximum time is the notwithstanding. Now that notwithstanding has been removed. From a layman perspective, what does it mean and how he can take this as a simpler word?
Oh, sure. I think if you see the way the legislation has come out, the clear objective of not only being reader friendly, but also user friendly. And I always had our Act of 1961, but somewhere down the line, as also remarked by the finance minister and the FAQs, there were almost about 4,000 plus amendments that were redundant, were made from time to time. And that is why we had, as you rightly mentioned, notwithstanding as a word, which again, from a reader point of view, always used to create confusion. In fact, we also had provisos, explanations, and some examples given with expanded subsections. So I believe the objective, as also mentioned by Sandeep, of keeping the legislation simple has been achieved. In fact, then, as we see, the number of pages, words, whichever parameter you adopt, or you may also want to see the lucidity of the act. And that's perhaps why the objective has been, as announced, has been achieved. We never expected any substantive amendments. So again, no surprises there. But I think it's a great piece of legislation.
Okay. Sandeep, one big question people are asking that what will happen to our tax calculation for the current fiscal, which is 24-25? Will it be on the basis of new act, which is going to be implemented from 1st April 2026, or will it be according to the Income Tax Act 1961?
Okay, so Shishir, I think one point is extremely clear. I think the new Income Tax Bill 25 that we are talking about, if we look at the initial sections, it makes it very clear that this will be effective from 1st of April 26. Of course, this is subject to the parliamentary approval process. There could be, as you said, it has been referred to a standing committee. I'm sure they'll come up with their suggestions. And there is a time, from the bill being presented now to the time when probably it sees the light of the day much later in the future. So we, at least for the purpose of doing our tax calculations for the year ending March 25, as well as for the year ending March 26, will have to depend on the existing Income Tax Act 1961 itself. So we have two, complete years, which is March 25 as well as March 26, which will have a dependency on the existing Income Tax Act itself. And if at all this new Income Tax Bill 2025 sees the light of the day, it being notified, then maybe the March 27 onwards related calculations will have to be done by taking a reference to the new act.
Okay. That's a very important clarification that you don't have to worry about this fiscal, during this fiscal about the new bill, how that will be calculated, and also the next fiscal. So finally, it will come only with effect from April 1, 2027. That's a 27-28 fiscal year, if I understand correctly, Sandeep, right?
26-27.
26-27. So the next fiscal. Anil, one key word which has been replaced is with the assessment year and the previous year is a tax year. What exactly is this concept? And from a very layman perspective, how we will understand this?
So I think in a very, very simple words, there is only going to be 1 year instead of previous year, assessment year, and all the confusion, which is the tax year. So 26-27 tax year is actually the year which starts from 1 of April 26, ends on 31 of March 27. I think in very simple terms, this is how it has been explained. And I think it has been borrowed and derived from a lot of international similar legislations, which have also been referred to in the FAQs issued by the minister.
Okay. Sandeep, if I go by this particular concept of tax year, this also said that only that period for the taxation purpose will be taken. The tax year will start from your starting of the business and not from the April 1. How this is going to work? Can you please explain to our viewers?
So I think, Shishir, this is quite simple. What they're trying to do now is instead of keeping multiple concepts of previous year, financial year, they're just trying to say that, and this is, as Anil said, an internationally accepted principle in the tax world that, everyone reckons to a tax year itself. So necessarily what it would mean is that your tax year and your financial year will overlap and it would be the same. There would be the same fiscal period that we are talking about. Say, for instance, just to give you an example to answer the question that you asked, if a person starts business in June 2026, let's take the year from, assuming that the new, bill gets notified. So if the person starts his business in June 26, then the tax year necessarily starts from June 26 till 31st of March 27. Okay, because my tax year will start from 1st of April 26. But in the example, since his business is starting post the start of the tax year, which is 1st of April, then obviously the period will to that extent get curtailed. And it would always be seen from the day of start of the business, the day on which the business commences its activity, which is the day in the month of June, till the March of the subsequent year.
Okay. Even for
and
the
if I may,
please,
if I may add, I think the provision which you're referring to is also there in the current Income Tax Act 1961. So there is technically no different or new concept which has been introduced, and it is very logical. Because if I don't have business for the first 3 months in Sandeep's example, then my tax year ordinarily should not be there in that first quarter. Sorry, just to add to what Sandeep said.
Okay. Now, Anil, I'm coming to talk about crypto. One big discussion in this new bill is going to talk about the crypto thing. Is there any change in the nomenclature of VDA, which was introduced in 22-23 budget, if I can remember correctly? Or is there something new which you want to highlight here?
So it is basically to adapt to the new ways of doing business, adapt to the new economic indicators, a new way of doing financial transactions in the motto of bringing this concept. Nothing which has changed substantially. I think in one of the interviews which the Honorable Finance Minister gave after the budget, which got recently announced, on the question was that they were at some point of time planning to bring in more provisions or to tax or bring in the framework of taxation for crypto. But they saw the way international sort of movements were happening with specific reference and how businesses were being done. And also in their consultation with the Reserve Bank, they said, let us bring this as part of the VDA, the virtual digital assets as it stands today. So again, this is one of the examples of how our government is proactive in bringing in law on the way of doing financial transaction business as it is practiced in today's times.
Okay. Sandeep, one issue is about the NRI taxation. What is the exact provision and what is the word or the nomenclature has been used in the new income tax bill?
Okay, so Shishir, I think a very relevant question because I kept reading a lot of news since yesterday that the residency provisions for non-residents have been probably tinkered around in the new income tax bill. But just to clarify that the residency provisions remain the same. There is no change. There was some sort of a confusion which was settled by the courts to act. They have just tried to imbibe all those judicial developments, and to that extent, they have refined the residency test for individuals, including what could apply to non-residents or NRIs that you are saying. But in terms of the duration of stay in India, during the previous year or in the block of the previous years, nothing changes, and the provisions remain as is, as what it was in the 1961 Act itself.
Okay. Anil, now one big issue is that when the finance minister talked about introduction of the bill, she was also saying that the aim is to curb the litigation. Do you think that with this new simplified bill, I'm just using the word government has used, the litigation will come down, and we have seen a good amount stuck in the litigation. So what is your assessment of that?
Two parts to this, Shishir. The past litigation, as you rightly mentioned, has been daunting. In fact, our understanding is that almost 1 year of tax outflow is stuck in litigation for every average assessee. But past remains past, and that will, I think, taper down. I think, why does litigation happen? The second aspect, litigation arises when there is an interpretation issue over a particular provision. Now, having said this, given the way the law has been proposed, where they have removed references, cross-references, the idea is to bring about clear interpretation of when that direct consequence will be less of confusion and less of litigation going forward. So I think the government has, pretty much taken a step to fix the problem that was there in terms of people interpreting the sections in a different manner, causing confusion and litigation. I think to a great extent, that will not happen in the future. So 5 years from, perhaps we may not have significant litigation at all in the tax regime.
Okay. Sandeep, my final question to you. What could not have been done?
Okay. So, let me put forward few things. I think as I told at the beginning of these conversations that maybe we need to probably moderate the expectations, but maybe what possibly could have been done is we could have imbibed some of the learnings from all the judicial developments that have happened in the last 6 decades, tried to make use of those judicial developments into the new bill itself so that we don't revive the litigation in the new Income Tax Act on the settled principles, at least, which were settled by the courts for the issues that were there under the old Income Tax Act.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing possibly could have been on the global best practices. I remember reading one of the objectives that maybe the committee will look into some of the global best tax practices and try and see if we can bring some of those best practices in implementation at India also. I probably don't see any one of those, say for instance a group taxation, because many of the countries in the UK and the European region follow a concept of group taxation, which makes things much simpler from a filing perspective, as well as from an overall tax administration perspective, from a taxpayer standpoint. I think those, possibly couldn't have been, that aspect possibly has not been looked into. I think we could have done by imbibing a little more contemporaneous provisions, which are, required at this point in time. And my last point only is that if we have been saying that there are close to around 21,000 suggestions which were received and were looked at before making this draft, and we are asking for something which is a little more revamped, then that in itself means that this new bill is a non-starter. So possibly some of those aspects could have been, monitored and factored into this new bill before it was presented.
Okay. Anil, just request you to come in the center. And final question to you, the same question which I asked to Sandeep, that what could not have been done, what was the expectation and what could not have been done?
Well, I think nothing in particular, to be honest. Sandeep covered all the points. I think the only point I want to add is the government has taken a lot of initiative of seeking inputs from various stakeholders. They've also borrowed the experience from Australia and UK in particular when they changed the law. So I think the objective was to simplify, and maybe this is a good attempt. It'll be open for public comments via the select committee, and I'm pretty sure at the end of the finalization, it'll come up to be one of the best legislations in tax that we've had.
Thank you, Sandeep, and thank you, Anil, for talking to us and decoding the new income
Thank
tax
you.
bill. I hope that the new bill, which is likely to be shaping as an act during the monsoon session. So thank you very much for talking to us.